Blood and Pigment channel. I'm Joseph, and in this video we're going to look at the basic movement rules for ships in Blood and Plunder. If you're new to Blood and Plunder, just got that starter set with Blackbeard and Maynard and ready to start playing, I recommend you quickly go back to our quick start guide for the basic rules for Blood and Plunder. It's on land, but it gets you all the basic rules for activating units and shooting and moving and all things like that. For this video, we're just going to talk about how ships function. This will be out of Chapter 8 of your rulebook. I'm using the revised rulebook, but I don't think any of the ship movement rules have changed. So even if you have the original book from 2016-17, the rules are all going to be the same. We're going to go through the basic rules. We'll mention some advanced maneuvers, but not really touch on them here. We'll have a separate video for that. So before we start with rules, we're going to look at a ship's stat card. All the Blood and Plunder ships have a stat card with lots of helpful information on them. I'm using a brigantine here. I give an example of that ship in the rulebook here on page 81. At the top of the card, you have your ship's name and its cost, and then important information for this video right below the name. You have the ship's top speed. This is as fast as it can ever move. You have your windward penalty. If you're sailing upwind, you're going to go a little slower in lots of ships. You have your turn value. This is as fast as it can turn. Some ships are more or less maneuverable than others. Your draft value, how deep your ship plows into the water. You might hit, be more or less likely to hit shoals or the bottom of shallow water. And then your size. This is a size 3 ship, has 3 decks. Each deck can hold up to 2 units and as many models as fit on the deck. And then through the body of the card, you have all the cannons and reload bubbles you can use for convenience in the game, and little marks for your critical damage you might sustain during a game. And then on the left side, you have all the stat, your HP basically for your ship, your rigging and your hull, and the critical results that might happen during a game. And then you got traits at near the bottom. These are special rules for your ship to make you unique and give it some special abilities that let you break the rules I'm about to tell you about. And then you have the sail setting. This is really important for this video. This is how much sail is set on your ship and how fast your ship is going to go. All right, so we're going to interact with all that in a minute. If you know how to play Blood and Plunder already, you know that you use cards out of a standard deck of 52 playing cards, and you activate units with these. So a ship is going to move 3 times every game turn. Once on the first during the activation of the first unit you play, and once during the activation of the last unit you use, and then one you can choose any of the activations in the middle. So I had 5 units. I'd have to move the ship once in the beginning of the turn and once at the end of the turn, and then I could choose any one of these and 3 in the middle to activate it all. You might want to wait till later on the 4th or do it really early in the 2nd. And that's a lot of fun strategy you can use in moving your ship there. So we'll move 3 times a turn. It will move regardless of your units, what they're doing on board. You don't need a ship or a unit to do certain an action to propel the ship. The wind's just going to push the ship along. There are actions your units can do to change sail setting or to accomplish certain maneuvers, or maybe assign them to the sheets and braces, but that's a little advanced. But your ship's going to move. The wind's going to push it. The wind's not going to stop just because your guys are fighting. All right, so how does a ship move? We have seen the sail setting. At the beginning of a game, you get to decide how fast your ship is moving, how much sail is set. So you just take a marker or a pen, dry erase pen if you want, on your laminated or sleeved card and mark. So I'm going to start this example with my sail set to 4 inches. So that's my base. I'm going to be moving 4 inches, but there's 2 other things that might come into play. When you move your ship, you look at your sail setting, that's your base speed, and then your wind speed. And this is a bit tricky. There's a couple things to consider. The wind is always coming from one of the 4 board edges. It's pretty simple in Blood and Plunder. It could be a lot more complicated. It's going to be coming from one of the 4 board edges, and it's going to have a speed. Now, usually starts a game at 0, so it's just, there is wind. It's not super fast, not super slow. It doesn't modify that number, your sail setting number. It could, through events, move up or down and go faster or slower. So there's the which directions it's coming from, and that you have to consider that because you have a windward penalty. This brigantine has a -1 windward penalty. If I am sailing at all upwind, I'm going to have the wind coming from you towards me in this example. If I'm going upwind, I'm going to go 1 inch slower because I'm not catching the wind as well, and I'm working against it. You can't go straight against the wind. We're going to talk about that in a bit. And then you have to check the speed of the wind. If the wind is extra windy, +1 or +2, you add to your speed. So let's say the wind is +1. I'm going slightly upwind. My base is 4. My sail setting is at 4 inches. 4 +1, and then with my -1 windward value, I'm still moving 4 inches upwind, and I will use the template here to measure how fast my ship is going, starting from the parallel skids here on the side of the ship. 4-inch move. Other thing that can modify your ship's speed is critical hits we mentioned earlier. There is a common critical hit when someone targets your rigging with cannons, and that's the sails and spars damage. If your rigging gets torn up, you're going to go slower. So every sails and spars critical result you have currently on your ship is going to slow you by 1 inch. So those are the 3 things you have to calculate: sail setting, wind, and there's 2 things to calculate there: direction and speed, and then critical hits. Let's talk a little bit more about the wind. There's a helpful graphic in Chapter 8 of your rulebook. It's on page 83, my revised rulebook. There are 3 points, important areas of the wind in Blood Plunder. Again, simpler than it could be. There is sailing large. Sailing large is anything from a beam. So if the wind is coming from you towards me, hitting the very side of my ship, straight along. This is called sailing. This is sailing large. I can go my full sail setting value, no penalty. And obviously if I'm sailing downwind, I also am sailing large all the way over to a beam on the other side. And then, so that's full speed basically. And then as soon as you start to go upwind at all, as soon as you're more than perpendicular to the wind with your bow closer to the source of the wind than your stern, you're going windward. And this is where that penalty kicks in. And then as soon as you get to anything past 45 degrees away from the wind, you're going to be, it's called sailing into the wind's eye. And this is where you're in trouble. You want to avoid this unless you're ready to do the advanced maneuvers. And we aren't going to cover all of them, but there's 3 advanced maneuvers that let you move through or away from the wind's eye or without resulting in disaster. But normally, if you're sailing into the wind's eye, you're going to be caught in irons, you're going to start to drift, lose control of your ship, you're just going to go backwards until you're out of that danger zone, and then you can regain control of your ship. So speed zones, sailing large, and then 45 degrees of windward, 45 degrees into the wind's eye, and then another 45 degrees of windward going this way. Large, windward, wind's eye all the way to here, and then windward until you get to here. There's some ships that deal with wind's eye better than others, and that's fun and interesting in the game. Let's get 2 more examples of this ship moving, this brigantine. First, we're going to do a simple one. I'm sailing large. The wind speed is -1, and my sail setting is 3. -1, or 3 -1, it's simple. I'm moving 2 inches. Here's another example. The wind is +2, very windy. And I'm going upwind, not in the wind's eye. My sail setting is 4, so I take my 4 +2, that's 5, and then, 6. And then I'm going upwind, my windward penalty is 1. I'm going 5 inches pretty fast. And that's a problem because if you look back at that brigantine card, my top speed is 4. And this is where another rule comes into play. If you would ever go faster than your top speed, you're going to get damage in your rig. You got too much sail set for how windy it is. So you will move your 4 inches, and then you'll take a lucky hit on your rigging. I haven't talked about lucky hits, but you have this critical hit table on the left side of your card. You just roll a d10. Well, the critical hit would just be the result. A lucky hit is a result -1. So if I roll a 6, then it's a 5. And that would be that sails and spars damage, which would slow my ship, which would solve my problem of going too fast in the wind here. All right, one more thing to talk about, and that is turning. This gauge has the straight side and then the curved side. When you turn, you line up the skids with the flat side, and then you can turn. You just move each step of the turning gauge is 15 degrees, if that helps you calculate where you're going to end up after you turn. So if I was moving 4 inches, the windward value, the turn value on this ship is 3. So you can't ever turn more than your turn value. So if I'm moving 4, I can only turn 3 of those, then I have to go straight for 1 of those inches. And this is important. You can turn and go straight in the same movement, but you can't ever do. But you have to do all of the turn and all of the straight together in either order. But you can't, like in my example here, you can't turn 1 and then straight 1 and then turn another 1 in the same direction. All your turn and then all your straight, or all your straight and then all your turn. Those are all the basics for moving a ship in Blood and Plunder. Keep an eye on the wind. You can manage your sail setting through dedicated actions with crew members on board to bring it up or down up to once a activation. Keep an eye on the wind, your sail setting, and any criticals. You can repair those too if they start to pester you. There are additional rules for advanced maneuvers we're going to cover in another video. Collisions, changing sails, we talked about that. Running aground, hitting shoals, grappling other ships and moving well grappled with another ship, and boarding actions and firing artillery at ships, and raking shots, and special rules for ships and boats. But this is the basics for movement. You can check out all these rules in Chapter 8 of the rulebook. I'm going to go over the finer points of the advanced maneuvers next here in the next video. But with the info we've looked at here, you should be able to get started and play a basic game of Blood and Plunder at sea using your first ship. Thanks for watching.